Good evening. It is Wednesday, September 6th, 2023, and coming to you from Studio 1A at Lonely Tree Media headquarters in Yakima, Washington. This is the Best Lamm Sports Show Pro Football Preview.
Miami has the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl, 'cause we're the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins #1.
Isn't that worth it?
Yes, we're the Miami Dolphins.
Woo! Oh, it didn't. Oh, it's on the wrong button. He's going to start over again, but that's okay. We'll just stop that for a minute. You like that?
Yeah, probably a good call. Yeah.
Yeah, because, this is a pro football preview, and the Miami Dolphins are kind of still my team. I will root for them. I don't particularly care for parts and pieces, but that's okay. Anyway.
Well, I'm looking up this guy.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Lee Hoffman.
Okay.
He wrote the song. He also wrote Houston Oilers #1.
Houston Oilers, yep. It's
He
almost
wrote
the
a
same song.
for both Miami and
It's the same song, by the way.
Is it?
It's not exactly, but it has the same tune, and it's the same song.
Was this like a Super Bowl?
No,
pre
it's just a fight song.
So this reminds me of years ago when the Ducks made the national championship. There was a song called "We Go Into the Ship," and they made a version of it for the Ducks and a
Right.
version of it for Auburn. But the whole entire premise was the same beat, same everything, but just every time they could implement a Duck thing or an Auburn thing, they would.
See?
So same deal. They basically just ripped off Lee Hoffman.
It's a fight song. It's a dolphin fight song. I just thought we would get a kick out of that, and I'm surprised for you here in a little bit. So there you go. We are. I'm your host, David Lamm. With me, my son Parker. Say hello, Parker.
Hello, Parker.
I think I have the wrong thing
I don't
going
think
on,
so.
but I think I'm all right. All right, they need to cut that off. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook under the Best Lamm Sports Show. You can send us an email, lambsports@gmail.com. And please check out our webpage. You can find links to the past shows and the current trivia question on www.lambsports.com. College football is fully up and running now. After that pretend weekend, the last weekend, that was, 2 games or 3 games? Or I don't know. There's like a half a dozen games. But I don't know why they do that. Why we have a pre-week. It's not week 1, but it is. So week 1 had Notre Dame had 2 games in week 1, and so did USC.
Yeah.
I don't know. Don't know why we do that, but they do that. So that's a thing. Gonna have our NFL preview. It's most of the show. We had Formula One in Italy. We're gonna talk about that a little bit. But first, we're gonna have our Stave and Stone trivia question. Are you ready for the Stave and Stone trivia question?
Born ready.
Okay. This is a good one. You ready? So here we go.
Yeah.
Where is it? There it is. I gotta find it. Only 2 NFL divisions have a winning record in Super Bowl appearances. And I want to know which 2.
Ooh. Okay, I know what they are.
Okay. Do you want to say it now or are we going to wait?
I'm gonna say it now.
Okay, give me.
I'm gonna say the AFC North and the AFC West.
You're half right.
AFC North was right.
AFC North is right.
Frickin' Steelers, man. I kind of knew that they would be carrying that load.
AFC North is 8-5.
Oh man, who would the other one be?
Hmm.
I'm trying to think about somebody who's NFC South.
Nope.
Or sorry, NFC East. Is that the one with
NFC
Cowboys?
East,
The one with
correct.
Cowboys, yeah.
The NFC East has 13 Super Bowl wins.
Yeah, I was
More than any
was
other.
thinking the Cowboys, and I said South because
Because they're in the South.
but,
I mean,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
The NFC East is 13-9 in Super Bowls. They've been to 22 Super Bowls.
Philly's been to a couple.
Right.
and So yeah, I
yeah.
guess there's a lot there. Do the Redskins have a Super Bowl?
Yeah. They have a couple.
Sorry, the Commanders.
3. I think they have 3 or
The
4.
artist formerly known as the Redskins.
They have 3. The Eagles have 1 Super Bowl championship.
Huh.
The Redskins Commanders have 3.
And the Giants have
The
2.
Giants have
Eli's got 2.
hold on. Back up. The Giants have 4 and the Cowboys have 5.
Nice.
So there you go.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of
it's
titles.
a lot of titles.
Yeah, the NFC North was an easy guess for me because of the Steelers.
The Steelers, yeah. The Steelers are the other one. They have 6 of those. 8
Yeah.
wins. So, but yeah. Anyway, I thought it was interesting. I was trying to see which division was the best, which had won the most, and then it made sense when I started
Right.
looking at it. I was like, yeah, Cowboys and the Giants, sure. So,
Right.
and the Redskins were good back in the '80s. So,
All right.
can we
I have an explanation for you on week 0 if you'd like it.
one question first?
Okay.
Can we call the former team the Redskins? When we refer to the 1982 Washington team, we don't have to call them the Commanders, right? I mean, I understand we're being sensitive, but they were the Redskins.
Well, that's tough. What do they want to be called?
We have to go ask them.
If you go ask them, I guess.
I feel like they're going to want to be called if you ask the football players, they're going to want to be called the Redskins.
I feel like if you ask the football players, they're not going to care. I feel like the fans care more than the players do. Maybe not the older players. Like the players from that time will probably want to be called the Redskins. But if you go ask the current team people who run the team, players who are on the team,
yeah,
they probably don't care.
Okay,
they could probably care less.
All right, what's your week 0 explanation?
So I'm reading a couple different things here. So it seems like the first thing that happened is games. They started to be too many games to fit into a TV schedule, right? And so they created week 0 for 2 reasons. Number one, it granted teams that had large travel schedules an extra bye week, such as Hawaii.
Okay.
Hawaii usually plays in week 0 or somewhere around
there.
Did. So they can get an extra bye week during the season to relieve.
Sure.
And number 2, it looks like the second reason was because they didn't want to overload the Labor Day weekend. So if they had a game they could shift that would be important, that would draw a little national buzz, i.e. USC, San Jose, was a little bit. I mean, it got people riled up. So they're going to do it. They're going to slide a game or 2 over there, opens up a network a little bit the next week. Because, the next week, USC played. Who did USC play week 2?
Nevada,
who is better, in my opinion, than San Jose.
In week 1.
Well, technically week 1. But it's better than San Jose, but they were on Pac-12 network, so they got pulled off of national television in week 2. So
right.
week 2. So yeah, that's the ultimate reason here. It says it was originally designed to grant teams who would volunteer for it an extra bye week, and it was offered to schools like Hawaii and like some of the if you were traveling a long way for your first game. So I guess if you were in Miami and you were playing in Washington, you could get an extra bye week in it. So.
Okay.
It's what the original function of it was, but now I guess it's a little distorted.
And it is too because, Florida International and Louisiana Tech played in week 1. So
here's a question for you: when did it take? When was the first week 0?
I don't know. 8 years ago.
1983.
What? There was a week 0?
Nebraska blew out number 4 Penn State, 44-6 in the old Giant Stadium in East Rutherford for the kickoff classic, is what they called it. But they're saying it has come and gone. Like it was gone for a couple seasons, and it was back for a couple seasons, and gone for. So it's kind of been back and forth. Only recently has it had its longest staying stint.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know. I just curious. Kind of weird. I don't know. All right. So I mean, I get it. But they're just prolonging the season. It just keeps, we're making it bigger and bigger.
Play as me. I don't give a shit. Start playing earlier. I love football. I can deal with it all year round.
I hear what you're saying.
Where's my week -5? So that way I can start this in August.
All right. Let's talk about the 2 things we have to talk about before we talk about what we want to talk about.
Okay.
Formula One. On Sunday, Max Verstappen set a new Formula One record by winning his 10th straight race, the Italian Grand Prix in Monza, Italy. So it was Red Bull's 15th straight win as a team. Mm-hmm. I guess I have a question. So here's my question. Ferrari finished third, right? Carlos Sainz and Leclerc finished 4th. They finished 3-4 behind Red Bull.
Right.
They haven't done that all year.
Right.
Is it conspiracy theorist of me to say, wow, Carlos Sainz got the pole in Italy with the Ferrari team, and they finished 3-4 in Italy when they haven't done that all season?
Of course it's conspiracy theorist of you to say it, but that doesn't mean that there's not some validity to it. Okay. I mean, no matter what way you slice it, you saw a couple years ago that races can be manipulated by leadership.
Sure.
It's just how it is. So there's no reason to think that a Ferrari, a podium, wouldn't make sense. There's honestly no reason to think with as corrupt as FIFA is, right? And
Yeah.
you know how much money's in there. There's
Yeah.
more money in Formula One,
Right.
right? And there's less oversight overall.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be surprising for me to understand that they were saying like, hey, like, I mean, this is just like an example of it. Not that I've ever heard this one before, but let's say they were like, okay, Lewis is getting a little political. We're done with Lewis. We need another guy. Red Bull, go on ahead and hop in. We're gonna ignore some things,
Oh
and
yeah.
you guys can be great and just crush everyone else. Not saying that that's happening, but they would have that ability to, because the stewards do the checks on the cars.
Right.
And if they notice a fuel bypass in the Red Bull one, then they could just ignore it. Like, it wouldn't be hard to do that. Like, especially internally with the car. Externally, teams are going to see it, right? That's hard to do, like with your body, with the body kit and things like that. I mean, last year teams were calling out each other left and right for external things.
Right.
But internally, where the power comes from, it wouldn't be hard. It wouldn't have been hard to do it when Mercedes was good, to be fair. So let's keep it across the board. It would have been hard to do it when Mercedes was good.
Right.
So that way they could get their first, not their first, it was technically wasn't their first black F1 driver, but their first title-winning F1 driver. Actually, it might have been the first black F1 driver.
Yeah.
Anywho, their first title-winning one. Now they appear
Yep.
progressive and on the forefront. And,
Right.
like, none of this really strikes me. If you were to tell me that everything was corrupt in Formula One, I'd go, probably.
Probably.
And
Yeah.
if you were to
That's
tell
right.
me that it's not, then I go, yeah, okay.
Okay. What was more surprising, their finish or the fact that Yuki Tsunoda's car started smoking before on this formation lap? He didn't even make it around a lap. I mean, I want to say it's surprising, and yet I'm going, meh. I mean, it's it's not that surprising. I was sitting, I'm always sitting there. Your mother and I are always sitting there watching, and we're going, who's the first one going to be out? That's the bet. Who's the first one out? Because there's no reason to bet who's going to win anymore. We always bet who the first.
If you're
person.
making odds on that,
Yeah.
it's got to be like Yuki and Lance Stroll
Yep.
near the top.
Yep.
And then there's a couple other guys, like a Hulkenberg gets
Right.
put out
One of
quite
the Haas
often.
guys, yeah.
One of the Haas guys. Yeah.
It could be.
There's-
We're sitting there, it's either a Haas guy, it could be an Alpine guy with a mechanical thing. It could be. I was not expecting Yuki Tsunoda car to be smoking on the formation lap. That was just weird, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a terrible way to go out, because hey, you didn't even get to start the race. Not like he crashed in qualifying or did anything weird. It just car broke down on a lap where you weren't even going fast. I don't know. Anyway, it was pretty interesting to just all of a sudden say, hey, wait, we're under a red flag already.
Yeah.
We haven't even started. Which shortened the race. Shortened the race by like 3 laps, right? Because they had to do all the formation and reform up, because they had a formation lap.
Yep.
And then they stopped and they followed the safety car under a lap, and then they red flagged it, and everybody came in, and they went back out because they had to do another formation lap. It's like, geez Louise. But in the end, it was Max Verstappen. I mean, it was inevitable.
Yeah.
I think that for the track probably suited the Ferrari cars. The way they had them set up is just all it is, because that track is totally different
That's
than all
what
the other
ESPN's
tracks.
telling you.
Yeah.
If you read there's an ESPN article that said why Ferrari was so much more dominant at this race, and you read it, and that's all it says. It's like
it's a
it
full
was
out.
built for this.
It's a full out racetrack. Yeah, I mean, it's not one of those super twisty turny, technical courses. It's made to go super fast.
Yarp.
So yeah. Anyway, Formula One has a week off before they come back. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
But Red Bull way out in front. I think if they win one more race or 2 more races, it might be 2, they clinch the Constructors Championship.
Sounds right.
Yeah, they don't even have to. I don't even know if they have to win the races. Just finish in the middle. But
Score points.
They're just way ahead, and Max Verstappen's almost clinched the whole thing.
Yeah.
He would have to not race the rest of the year, or not finish any of the races, and Sergio Perez would have to win every race for him to have a shot. So
yeah,
it's pretty sad. So it's been boring. I want more excitement. I mean, there were some exciting things here and there, but I want more. I'm expecting Max versus Lewis 2 years ago. That's what I'm expecting.
Which was incredible.
It was incredible.
It was fun to watch. It was debatable.
Good
TV.
TV.
It was everything.
Yeah.
It was good entertainment.
Yeah.
And see, this is what the European fans were saying, is that eventually American fans would get bored with it.
Yeah,
and it's happening, man. It's happening.
Yeah, the dynasty part is pretty sucky.
I don't think you can call him a dynasty.
15 straight races?
Well, no, not no. But dynasties involve titles, right? You imagine if you won every race, but you could never win a title. Like that's not how
Well,
it
he's
works.
won 2
in
straight
Formula One,
titles.
but-
He's about to win 3.
Well, okay. So here's where you'll get the caveat. He controversially won
Sure.
1 straight title,
Okay.
but he absolutely crushed the other one. So he's about, in my opinion, he's about to have 2 legitimate ones,
Okay.
right? And as soon as he takes the 3rd, I'm cool with dynasty. I need 3. Even the U required 3 good years before they started calling themselves a dynasty. The Warriors had to get 3 before they called themselves a dynasty.
Were the Tom Brady New England Patriots a dynasty?
Yeah, but
They didn't win consecutive titles. They won.
No, it's not necessarily about consecutive titles. It's about a total amount of titles and a
Okay.
consistent level of excellence in the process.
Okay.
So, but when you're first starting, it starts with your first title,
Okay.
right? That first run up to it, and you get it, and now it's like, all right, clock's ticking. How are you going to maintain this level of high competitive level? So there's that. But
Right.
I'd say one more and he's there. But don't get me wrong, I don't even think even Lewis was ever this out in front of people.
Not really. I mean, he
like,
did well, but
I'm sure he had races like it, but not
Yeah.
like this.
no. And he had multiple stretches where he won 5 or 6 races in a row, and that was dominant. But it isn't dominant to the point like Max is at this point. I mean, where it's just inevitable that he's going to take the lead and he's going to win. If his car doesn't break down, if someone doesn't hit him, there's no one's going to beat him at all. So anyway,
I do like what Toto Wolff said. Lewis, I guess, a couple weeks ago talked about the sport getting boring. He said I would know. He said so changes to help make things more competitive are always good. That's literally what the point of these cars was supposed to be.
right.
But Toto Wolff came out the other day and warned against it, and he said that they shouldn't do it. He says because he doesn't want it to become like WWE. He doesn't want it to be scripted.
Right. Well, that's
And
true.
He said as long as you comply with the regulations, technical, sporting, and financial, you just need to say well done. It's up to us to catch up, and if that takes a long time, then it takes a long time. I remember people crying foul when it was us. Entertainment follows sports and not the other way around. We cannot be WWE scripted content. We don't want that.
It's true. All right.
So I like that answer. So even though it sucks that Max is doing this because it's just boring to watch, it's the order of things.
It would have been a lot better had you done it with a German accent. But I'm just saying.
I thought about it for like 2 seconds, and I was like, no, I'm not sure I could pull off that harsh accent.
Yeah, you can. Anyway, college football. Let's talk about college football for a minute. And for some reason, the slides get all out of whack, and I don't know why. Let's talk about college football. Who had actual week 1 after the week 0? And let's just say this: the Pac-12 after 13 games is 13-0.
Woo!
And I'm not certain I've ever seen that.
I don't know that it's ever happened. As a matter of fact, I think I heard them say on like one of the channels that it's never happened.
Yeah, that would not surprise me.
Yeah.
The Oregon Ducks opened up their 23 campaign with a gritty victory over Portland State. Yeah, 50 points in the first half en route to an 81-7 victory where every player on their roster got to play. And that's good. I mean, that's what you want. That's the reason why you're paying Portland State the big bucks to come there and let you play all the players and win all the, score all the points. Bo Nix, 287 yards and 3 touchdowns. It looks pedestrian, but they run the ball so well. I mean, they had 5 rushing touchdowns, and you don't,
It was just efficient.
It's an efficient game, and it it's going to make him look, by comparison, he had 4 incomplete passes. He was 23 of 27, right? 287 yards, 3 touchdowns. Ty Thompson comes in to back him up, 7 of 8, 81 yards and a touchdown. And then the third string guy comes in and is 3 of 3. So the team only had 5 incomplete passes the whole game, 33 of 38. And you had Bucky Irving rushing for 119 yards, Jordan James, 86 yards and 3 touchdowns. You had 4 guys over 50 yards in this one. And the best part I think about it was Bo Nix didn't have to rush a single time and risk getting hit really at all.
Woo!
Which is saving him for later. That's going to pay dividends later. I mean, 3 or 4 less hits come, game 10 or 11 is going to be big.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a good win. I mean, it really was. It was a really good win. But it's Portland State. So let's caveat that, and then let's also say that next week they play Texas Tech, who suffered a loss to Wyoming in overtime, um, 35-33. I that was a kind of a not a huge upset. It's not the biggest upset of the weekend by any stretch, but Texas Tech is now going to be hungry.
Or
Trying to
deflated.
well, one of the well, maybe both, but I mean, if you don't think they got their behinds handed to them by their coach after that game,
Without a doubt.
yeah,
Without a doubt.
there's
But I
there's
think they got caught looking ahead.
there's going to be and then maybe that is exactly what happened. I mean, that happens a lot. And that just proves that you're not that good a team that you can look ahead and still win the game because there are teams that can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it'll be interesting.
I think Oregon could do that.
It'll be
To Portland State, anyways.
next week will be interesting. Oregon at Texas Tech. That's going to be a good football game. I don't know. I'd put my money on Oregon right now just because, but I would not be surprised if it was a sluggish battle early, first half, because Texas Tech's going to come out motivated. That coach is going to make sure they come out motivated. And anytime you're playing on the road, it's a little bit different. You know, playing in the winds of Lubbock, Texas,
Right.
is interesting.
Well, Oregon's only a 6.5-point favorite, so
Yeah, which surprises me. I think
it seems low considering what happened last weekend with both teams.
it does. So they're putting a lot of stock. I think Texas Tech was picked to finish fourth in the Big 12. The Big 12 didn't have the best day though.
Yeah.
Baylor got beat by Texas State, right? Yeah, that was a big deal. So yeah, Big 12 was probably the loser of the major conferences this weekend in terms of the losses that they suffered.
Right.
TCU lost, right, to Colorado, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But so anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing Oregon play next week on Saturday. We'll know more. We'll learn a lot about Oregon next week on the road and against a I don't want to say a major program, but a major program, a big school.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to be more interesting. Oregon State won. Oregon State beat San Jose State 42-17 on the road on Sunday night. I thought that was a really good win for Oregon State. Their defense looked every bit as good as USC's defense against San Jose State. They actually looked better against the passing game. Did you watch that game?
I did.
Did you like what you see from Oregon State?
I do. I think you're right. I think you hit it on the head. I think the defense looked as good as USC. I have some quarterback questions though.
Yep.
So I watched two games this past week, and we're going to talk about the other one, which is Colorado TCU. But both quarterbacks did something similar, and so in this game, DJU, I'm not even going to try and pronounce his last name.
Yeah.
Threw probably, I'm going to guess like 85% of his passes sub 10 yards.
Yeah.
So short passes that then would break open and things like that. He did a couple ones that were out there. He had 2 touchdown passes that were just wide open, like
Right.
guys standing still.
Yeah.
But what impressed me most with them was their offensive line, because this San Jose State team got to Caleb Williams quite a few times,
Right.
but they could not get to DJU.
Yeah.
So I found that to be kind of impressive.
Yeah, and to your point, Oregon State had the longest pass was 31 yards, which
Is that the longest of the whole game?
for Oregon State, yeah, the longest pass they had was 31 yards. His average per attempt was 9.6, which is not huge. To put that in perspective, the starting quarterback Cordero for San Jose State, his average per attempt was 4.8 yards. So yeah, there was a lot of
A lot of short stuff getting tackled down early.
but you got to see Jay Butterfield, so that was.
But I did get to see Butterfield. Not only are we going to get to see Butterfield, we're going to get to see Tyler Shuck.
We get to see Tyler Shuck, yeah, right. Every
all
quarterback.
the Oregon, quarterbacks who didn't make it are out there.
You're gonna see them all. But Nick Nash for San Jose State. I gotta go find it here. Hold on. Nick Nash. I don't have the games. Why is there not the game by game? It's not on here. What is going on? Oh my gosh, Stats, come on, man, do what you're supposed to do. Nick Nash had 6 catches for 89 yards and 3 touchdowns against USC. He had 7 catches for 40 something yards against Oregon State. So, yeah, not as good.
Oh, that's good.
not as-
Held in check. Their whole entire passing offense was held in check a little more.
Right.
in this game, so.
Nick Nash looked like a superstar against USC.
He really did, didn't he?
Did. Yeah, he did. So that was good. It was good to see. I like Oregon State doing well. I'm an Oregon State fan when they're not playing Oregon. So there we go.
It's good for Oregon to have Oregon State be good.
It is. It is good. And I'd say it's good for the Pac-12, but no one cares anymore. Right. Also, this weekend, Caleb Williams and USC beat Nevada. What was that? 66 to. I mean, who cares? But it was just the destruction of. And it's the second straight week they scored over 50 points. They scored 56 against San Jose State, and they scored 66 in
it's the second straight week they played non-Power 5 teams.
It's true. No, the opponents haven't been great. You're right. 66 to 14 was the final score. But it's Nevada again, so you gotta just take it for what it's worth. And then also in the Pac-12, Utah with their win over Florida. Utah looked okay to me.
Well, they looked really good for 2 quarters.
Their defense looked really good. And their quarterback, Utah had some play calling offensive issues, and that's because it was a backup quarterback or who knows what. They got new players and whatever, but they had some issues where the Florida Gators looked like they were standing still on defense, like they had no idea what the play call was until like a second before the snap. And Utah was not going fast and taking advantage. No, maybe they're not built to go fast, whatever. Right. But I would think that as an offensive coordinator, you'd see that and go, hey, let's call an extra play for every drive, and we'll just throw it in there when we see that they're confused. But they aren't doing that. And I get it. It's the first game of the season. There's probably technical issues going on, and I get it. But it just seemed like Utah could have been better, could have beaten Florida by more. Had they been a little more efficient on offense, but
I think that all fell into the third and fourth quarter because I thought they were doing a bunch of things right in the first and second quarter. They put up a 17-3 lead. They were cruising, and then they stalled out in the second half. So just go, just do things a little. They kind of got away from some things. The quarterback started keeping the ball less in the second half.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't a fan of the way they played the second half, but they got the win, 24-11.
They were 24-3 with 11 minutes to go in the third. So yeah, the first drive of the third quarter they scored, and it was 24-3. I think that's where I actually stopped watching. I didn't get to see the rest of it because I was doing stuff. But
they probably started going a little light just to be like, okay, well, we got a big lead right now. We're up 3 scores. There's no sense running our quarterback into the ground just in case Cam can't come back as fast as we'd like.
Right.
So let's take it easy for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, you only had one turnover in the whole game. Florida only turned the ball over one time. Florida outgained them, Utah. They had more yards. They had more first downs. They had more time of possession. They just didn't do anything with any of it. And you got to put it in the end zone because if you don't put it in the end zone, it doesn't mean anything, right? So anyway, it was a good win. It was a good win. It's a good, win over an SEC team. SEC is always telling you that any win in the SEC is a big win. So I guess this is a good win then, right?
Yep.
Let's talk about the other one. Colorado 45, TCU 42 in Dallas. Fort Worth. I guess TCU is technically Fort Worth. But anyway, so Deion Sanders, I'm having trouble with. The team looked good. Okay? The team looked good. Their offense looked good. Their defense gave it 42 points. You can say what you want.
Your defense looked terrible.
Yeah, your defense did not look that good.
Even when Oregon was the kind of team that was beating, like scoring tons of points, the duck doing 1,200 push-ups in a year or whatever.
Yeah.
They were never giving up 42 points in a game.
Right.
It'd be like 21.
Right. And
it's bad.
And it was all first half points usually. And they made adjustments and then shut people down. Colorado was giving up points all game long, and it was to a new quarterback. There were multiple new people on the offense for TCU.
Right.
And everyone wants to say, well, they were in the championship game last year. Yeah, but it's not the same team. It's not the same team.
Teams get up all the time and put together a good season and then disappear. Do we all remember when Notre Dame put together a 13-win season and played a national title and got stomped, and the next year they were nobodies?
Right.
It happens. Like, it's all the time. Washington, for the Pac-12, put together a great season, got to the college football playoff, got stomped, and weren't heard from again for 5 years.
Yeah, and what I'm telling you is this is a team that TCU is a team that just they got hammered in the national championship game by the national champions, and then their next game they're on a 2-game losing streak. Their next game they lost to a team that won 1 game last year. So take that for what it's worth again, because it's early in the season and we don't necessarily know anything about TCU. We don't know where they're going to end up. But if this is any indication, their defense is going to give up 45 points. Their offense is going to come along. I mean, I don't know how.
They scored 42. Yeah.
Right. Their offense is going to be okay. They struggled early in this game. But
and Colorado was a mistake away from losing this game.
Oh, absolutely.
TCU was a mistake away from winning it.
Right.
Like it was so simple. Like this didn't. People were all saying like, "Oh, this is a big." I'm like, this is tight. This doesn't tell me much other than both these teams have terrible defenses.
Right. It was a struggle both ways.
I didn't get like a lot from this other than the fact that Colorado's clearly better than they were last year. But I mean, if you run into one defense that's a little better than you think they are, next thing you know, this score is going to be 42-14, and you're losing.
And just for fun, Colorado averaged 1.6 yards per carry rushing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
well, they used that running back in the passing game.
Yeah. What I'm telling you is, if you're watching any of this film, there's no reason to play rushing defense. There's no reason. You need a blitzer. You need somebody to make because if you watch Sanders scramble and throw, he was not nearly as effective.
He's not a smart
scrambler. He will make a bad decision.
There's no way you're trying to sit here and tell me that the Prime's son, doesn't have wheels.
Oh, this guy's fast, but
he has to have wheels, and yet there he was, sacked 5 times, and put up no like what the hell?
Yeah, it was weird, right?
Yeah, he either when the pressure came down to it, he either freaked out, made bad decisions, something like that.
Yeah.
But like on the screen right here, you're showing a play here where he's rolling out to the side.
Yep.
He's not rolling out to his passing arm side.
Nope. Yeah. No. It was and. All the accolades to Travis Hunter, 11 catches, 119 yards. Okay, he had an interception, right? That was amazing. The interception was an amazing anticipation. He jumped in front. Yeah, it was great. Might be one of the plays of the year if you want to get down to it. It was that was one of the best.
When they show his Heisman moments, when he's at the Heisman Trophy presentation, if he makes it that far, that play, that picture of him diving through the air, catching the ball, is going to be one of the things that does it.
But I will tell you that if you play Travis Hunter 110 snaps a game, he's not going to last more than 6 or 7 games. There's no way. He
was limping in this game.
Yeah, he's going to get beat down at some point in time. His body will not be able to handle that. It's too many plays. It's just too much at this level. It's too hard to play hard all the time. He's going to have to take plays off, or you're going to have to start using him one way or the other. I'm not saying you can't use him both times, but he's a defensive back. Let him play defensive back and occasionally throw him in on offense. Don't have him play both ways all game long because you're going to ruin him.
Yeah.
And they needed him. They needed every bit of him to beat TCU. So there's that. I don't know. Here's my problem. Here's my problem with Deion Sanders, and I'm going to say this. This is going to sound terrible. I don't like what Deion Sanders says. Deion Sanders, earlier in the week, before the game, someone mentioned him being a Florida State Seminole. And he goes, I'm not a Seminole. I'm not from Florida State. And they're like, well, that's where you played football. He goes, well, isn't that from where you graduate from? I graduated from an HBCU.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. But you played football at Florida State, and that's the reason why you're famous. You didn't play football at the HBCU, right?
Well, he's famous for playing football in the NFL.
Sure, but he was a All-American at Florida State. He was the reason he played NFL football is because he played at Florida State.
Well, the reason he played at Florida State because he got his high school education where? The reason he got his high school education because he was born where?
But listen,
like you want to keep boiling it back, you can. He can claim whatever he wants to claim for his alma mater. That's fine with me.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the reason why we know his name is because he was successful in the NFL for the most part.
Right.
He wouldn't have a legacy if it wasn't for his NFL legacy. You never hear about college football Hall of Famers who didn't make it.
Let me finish because I'm not done.
Okay.
What then he said after this game was that his son, who's an HBCU quarterback, just did that. And I'm like, no, he's not. He's not graduated from an HBCU. He's playing in Colorado. He is.
I thought his son did graduate, but I might be wrong.
I don't think so. But what I'm getting at is he is playing for Colorado. He is a Colorado Buffalo now. If this is the last place he plays, you know what I mean? He'll be remembered as a Colorado Buffalo, not playing for Jackson State. But it's to me, it's hypocritical to say one and not the other. And then to always bring up HBCU, and when you're talking about yourself to say, oh, well, people get intimidated when a confident black man says these things. And I'm like, why do you make everything about race all of a sudden? Why did it all have to be racial? Just stop it.
I feel like it doesn't matter. But the moment somebody says, "Why does it have to be about race?" It almost is
He
like
did it already.
I understand. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
You and me, same team here.
Okay.
I just feel like the moment you say that, you put the target out there a little higher. That could your comments be construed as this or that? Like, could they be like this? Now, I know you, and I know that you don't like any outspoken people, period.
Well,
You hate coaches who talk loud. You hate players who talk loud.
do.
You want actions on the field
Yep.
and shut up elsewise. You
Yep.
are literally the epitome of shut up and dribble, but it's equal opportunity.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay. I understand where you're coming from. But there are a lot of voices out there talking about these players, talking about Coach Prime, talking about them that do carry that weight. So it's easier to not try and discern them one from the other. And just for him, it's easier to just throw out the narrative that there's potential, illicit motivations behind it. And just let it be there, because then hopefully that quiets everything. Right?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what was most confusing about this football game. Deion Sanders on the sideline, Shadur Sanders at quarterback,
Yep.
Shiloh Sanders in the defensive backfield, and the running back for TCU is Trey Sanders.
Yeah,
Everything was Sanders. It was Sanders. Every play had a Sanders involved in it.
I agree. I
was
saw
like,
that too. I remember when I saw the running back, I was like, wait, does he have a kid?
Yeah, is there another
TCU
one?
also? I was like, is that why they're playing each other?
He wouldn't let him play over there. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's interesting.
I understand what Deion Sanders is doing. He's doing exactly what he means to do, and it's working, which is he'll say whatever he needs to do, and it'll rile up people, because no press is bad press. If you're talking trash, that's fuel. If you're giving praise, that's love. Like, either way, it's something for them.
Oh yeah, he's gonna use it.
So he doesn't have to filter it.
Colorado plays Nebraska next week on Fox. Colorado State the following weekend on ESPN, before they go on the road at Oregon, and then play at home against USC. We aren't going to learn much about them against Nebraska, because Nebraska's going to lose this game whether it's close or not.
Well, that's true. But if they come out and they can't score 45 points, if they come out and Nebraska's defense
maybe
does their job and holds them to 20, then you start thinking TCU offensive outburst was a flash in the pan.
Right, that's true.
And it was all element of surprise and things like that. Or if it's a close game and God forbid they lose it, then you question the whole thing.
Right. Anyway, I think
they'll win.
If they play the way they played against TCU, then they'll beat Nebraska and Colorado State.
They'll be fine.
Yeah, and then you've got a tough couple games, and then it gets a lot harder.
Nebraska plays a man defense also, so all that underneath crap's still going to be there. Yeah, so it's going to exist the exact same way as it did last week. The top stuff won't be there as much, but he didn't throw the ball that often.
So on Sunday night, LSU came out and laid an egg against Florida State. Florida State beat LSU 45-24. Florida State was better than LSU. They were just better.
It was a hell of a competitive game for a little bit.
Yeah. But in the end, LSU made mistakes. Florida State didn't. Florida State just was better. They looked like a better football team. Significantly better. Not just a little. This is a 3-touchdown win. That's significant against a team that's supposed to be the number 5 team in the country, which is why I say preseason polls are just a bunch of crap. It doesn't matter. We don't know. LSU might not win a game this year. And then what? But anyway, this is why I say I don't like the polls, but it was a big win for Florida State, and Florida State gets a gigantic boost from it. Oh, hey, we beat the number 5 team in the country. It's an SEC team. Okay, great. Yeah. But it's a preseason thing. It's I would temper that again with a little bit, because I don't know how good LSU is. They were getting all kinds of love, but Florida State looked good, and with that coupled with the Duke win over Clemson, and I'm sorry, but I watched that game, and Duke just wanted that football game more than Clemson did.
Clemson only has themselves to blame. Yeah, like that's not to take away from Duke, but they made so many mistakes.
Oh sure, but
and Duke capitalized off of every one of them.
The Duke defense just looks so much better than it has in my recent memory. They were all over the place. They were making the Clemson players work hard for offense, and it was not coming easily. And Cade Klubnik didn't look great. Their team as a whole just didn't. There was something missing. I don't know what it was, but that swagger, I guess, from a national championship contender that you just didn't see, because Duke was all over them the whole game.
I mean, it really just seems more and more like they had a string of really good quarterbacks, and Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence back to back, Wait, was it Deshaun then Trevor, or was there somebody in between those two?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, I think they were back to back because Deshaun was there for 3 years,
Yeah.
and then Trevor was there for 3 years.
Gotcha.
So that sounds about right. 6 years, last 6 years. But they had this amazing streak of really good quarterback play that kind of elevated them. And then last year they have DJU, and then they go to Klubnik, and it's just not the same. And this year it's already off to a bad start. I just think that they might have not saying they've run their course, not saying they won't be good, because I do think they're better than a lot of teams in the ACC, but they just might not be that level anymore. They might be a 10-11 win team now and not a 12-13 win team.
And that's true. You're absolutely right. Yeah, it was, gosh, what do I want to say? Interesting to me. Let me pull this down, see if I can make this right. I'm trying to, okay, there we go. It was interesting. They're Clemson. So if Florida State is that good and Clemson is what we saw Clemson do, I mean, Clemson, yeah, they might be a 9-win team still, because I don't know if the ACC is that great. ACC is that great. North Carolina's okay. That's like the next team down, right? In the ACC is after Florida State, now it's North Carolina, and then it's Duke now, who's ranked, and then Clemson.
Yeah, it's probably Florida State, and then
But I don't think any of those teams are great shakes. Florida State might be. We'll know more later, I guess, but we'll see. I don't think you're going to see much out of their schedule. It's going to give things away. This was the marquee game on their schedule until they play Clemson or North Carolina. So
I don't know that Louisville's that good in that conference, but they were getting worked, and they came back in that game. So we know they got heart.
That's true. Louisville,
we know that they have that, and that can win you some games you're not supposed to.
Louisville does have one vote to be on the top 25 this week. So there's that.
And that is the Louisville AD.
It might be, for sure. It's hard to say. Let's look at quickly at the AP poll, which changed dramatically for some teams. Florida State moved up 4 spots. LSU dropped 9. Clemson dropped 16 places, but still ranked, which I don't think they should be. You lost to an unranked Duke team. I don't think you should be ranked. I mean,
well, I just don't see a way in this world where you have teams with a loss, and then there are teams that don't have losses.
Right.
That are behind. I mean, later on in the season, you can get into number of losses. Like, it kind of sorts itself out in terms of who you lost to and things like that. But at this point right now, only one game in, how is UCLA not up here, right? I mean, they're right there in the voting. How is Iowa not up here? They scored touchdowns this year.
Right.
Arkansas, I mean, not TCU, but like there are teams there that put them in. Like, who cares?
Right.
Like, it's week 1. Let's all sort out, except it does matter a lot, because when LSU's 14, it's easier to get back to 3 or 4.
Right, exactly.
As opposed to when they're unranked.
Right. Yeah.
It seems arbitrary when they drop teams.
Right, because how do you determine that LSU is somewhere between Oregon and Kansas State? I mean, right. I don't understand how you figure that out. To me, it's just a matter of, arbitrary ranking. And if from what I've ever read is true, then it's just some assistant to the head coach who's filling out forms and dropping them in the box. But
how about this? Oregon and Kansas State combined for 126 points.
Yeah.
To 7.
Yeah.
LSU, on the other hand, gave up
45.
45.
Yeah.
Right. So even just from an offensive standpoint, you don't fit in between these two teams.
Yeah, it's weird.
What are you doing?
I don't know. Anyway,
but it's all right. It is what it is, and I hate the disparity between one poll and the other. Clemson's 25 in the AP, but 21 in the coaches. Like, I don't get that.
Right. Yeah. No, it doesn't make any sense to me. How far and why it's different, and I guess that's why we have it, is because these are sports writers, the Associated Press poll is different than the coaches poll.
Yeah,
I get it, but it's arbitrary at this point in the season, because unless you've had a game against a team that we know is good, it doesn't matter, right? So like next week, Alabama and Texas are going to play, right? I don't know that Texas is good. I don't know that. I know Alabama's good.
Well,
they're
for
always
Oregon's sake, we kind of want Alabama to beat Texas, because if Alabama loses to Texas, they'll stay in front of Oregon.
Oh yeah, probably.
So we kind of want Texas to lose from a rankings climb standpoint. Couple that with a TCU win, maybe you move 3 spots up or something like that, and Bob's your uncle.
Bob's your uncle. That's right. Anyway, I don't know. It'll be interesting to watch, but we'll see. We'll know more. I give it 2 more weeks.
Two more
When
weeks.
we're talking about this after 3 weeks, after everybody's played 3 games, we'll know more.
I always say like after the first like conference week, so week 4 is when most people start conference play. After that first conference week is when I really feel like I'm like 4 games in. That's quarter. That's quarter of the season. Like
Right.
I know who's what.
So here's what's happening this weekend. If you're a fan, big games. Are there any big games? Notre Dame plays at NC State. Not that that's going to be a big game, but Notre Dame, I'm not 100% certain they're awesome. Colorado gets a chance to prove that they're, pretty good. Nebraska lost again. This is why they hired a new coach, was so they'd stop losing by 3 points at the end of a football game, and they did. They lost by 3 to.
And then their quarterback threw a pick.
Yeah, it's like, jeez. Ole Miss at Tulane. I like that game.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
I like that one. That one's a good matchup right there. I don't know that there's, and then there's the Texas Alabama, Oregon Texas Tech, Wisconsin at Washington State will be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see that. UCLA at San Diego State. I'm interested to see.
Stanford USC
Could be interesting.
could be interesting if Stanford is.
Yeah.
I mean, this will be probably one of the biggest. Well, I guess what's his name's not there anymore. The Stanford coach left,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Stanford now, so maybe that'll help. I don't know. Who knows? But that's an interesting one.
Yeah. But this is going to be it's a good weekend. You're going to see a lot of blowouts. There's a lot of teams playing nobodies.
Also, Texas A&M Miami.
Texas A&M Miami, yeah.
At Miami.
At Miami.
I think that could be a good one.
That's true. Texas A&M's overrated every year, so we'll see what happens.
Also, a quick side note here. I did not realize how much people in Colorado hated Nebraska.
Yeah, well, they used to be in the Big 8 together.
I understand, but when you ask an Oregon fan how they feel about Washington, they're like, whatever, they suck. Like, it's pretty much like that. When you ask a Colorado fan how they feel about Nebraska, it's like it reminds me of like asking a Tennessee fan how they feel about Florida.
Yeah,
it's like it's harsh.
It's a big deal. Those two used to go at it in the Big 8 for a long time. Anyway, okay, so we wasted a lot of time on 2 things that we probably shouldn't have, but that's okay.
We're good.
We'll make our NFL thing a little bit shorter, but I mean, not too much. We're still going to talk, but we're going to talk about division by division. Are you ready?
Yep.
For the NFL. So here we go. We're going to talk first about the NFC East. All right, because the reigning NFC champions, the Philadelphia Eagles, are in the NFC East. See what I did there? I hang on. I got to get my other stat thing back up here. I got to get my whole page because everything's all out of whack. Last year's standings: Eagles 14-3, Cowboys finished second 12-5, the Giants 9-7-1, also made the playoffs last year with a wild card berth, and the Washington Commanders were 8-1. They were almost in it.
Wasn't that long ago we were laughing at this division because like almost everyone had a losing record and they still had to put a playoff team in.
Right.
And now here they are. They've all got winning record.
Yeah, they were all at least 500.
At least 500.
So it's going to be an interesting division to watch. You're looking at Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, Dak Prescott, Daniel Jones. I think, and then of course the Washington Commanders. I don't know. The Commanders do some weird stuff. I thought Taylor Heineke was a good quarterback there, and was doing some good things, and all of a sudden they got rid of him, and I'm like, okay, and now you're going with Sam Howell from formerly of North Carolina. I don't know that Sam Howell's NFL, but Jacoby Brissett's the backup quarterback. I almost start Jacoby Brissett. Clearly, Sam Howell won the starting job. I get it, but this team is not loaded with stars on the offense, by any stretch. Brian Robinson Jr. is their running back. Okay, Antonio Gibson's the number 2 on the depth chart. Terry McLaurin has been a serviceable wide receiver. Would you say he's a number 1 wide receiver on any other team? Maybe.
Some, but not most.
Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel. I mean, this is what they got. I mean, they're good players. They're just not. It's not nothing you go right home about. The defense, however,
the defense is good.
And that's how they're going to win football games, I guess. So it's just interesting to me. Sam Howell, I don't get. I feel like you could have a little bit better quarterback in there. You might have a little bit better chance, but
sure.
I don't think the Commanders are competing for the division title anyway. I think it's a 3-team race. If Dallas decides to play like their roster is good enough to,
right.
I mean, they've underperformed This is just my take, and I feel like the Giants with a healthy Saquon Barkley, the Giants are good. That's a good football team. I mean, that's capable of winning 10 or 11 games. But you're playing in a division where it's the other teams are good too. So, you get throttled with that like they do in the AFC West, which we'll talk about later. What's your take on the NFC East?
Oh, you just said it all. Like, it's exactly what you said. Philly's up there at the top. The Commanders don't have the pieces. The Cowboys are the Cowboys, so they'll make the playoffs, but that's it. The Giants are a potential threat.
Okay.
It's there's not too much to go into with this division because it's just Phillies to run away with.
Okay.
The next best team in terms of talent is the Cowboys.
So you're picking Philly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you going to say one of the other teams makes the playoffs? Giants, Cowboys?
No.
No, just Philly.
Yeah, I think just Phillies because I think there's another conference that's gonna put multiple teams in.
Okay.
Box them out.
All right.
I mean, they could be. They're the next most likely after this other division, but I just don't think they will.
Okay. Okay. I'm on board with it. I mean,
There's 3 wild card spots, right?
yeah, we do 7
Pretty
teams now, which it's weird, right? Why we don't just do 8, I don't know. So let's talk about the NFC North. We're going to move to the North, which brings us to Minnesota, because Minnesota is probably the odds-on favorite to win the NFC North, like they did last year. They were 13-4 last year. The Lions were 9-8, just missed a playoff spot by a tie. The Packers were 8-9 last year. That was with Aaron Rodgers, though. And the Bears were 3-14 with a really young Justin Fields and a very poor defense that gave up a league high 463 points last year. So I like Kirk Cousins, but he strikes me as the guy who he's a Jim Kelly. I mean, maybe not quite as good as Jim Kelly, but he's going to get him to that point. But they're never going to win a Super Bowl. Are they going to win one with Kirk Cousins back there? Is he going to be that guy? Can they? Is Jordan Love capable of leading Green Bay to more than 8 wins? And are the Detroit Lions good enough to play some defense to support all the offense that they had last year? At the second half of the season, for sure. Their defense needs to be just a shade better, and Detroit's a 10 or 11 win team. I don't know. And all that is are the Bears going to take a step forward, steal a couple of games? So I would go, if it was me, I'm going Minnesota, right? And I think the Detroit Lions are going to make the playoffs.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. What do you think?
I think that Detroit's going to win the division.
Really? I'm writing it down.
Yep, and I think that Minnesota will be the runner-up. I think it will come down to those 2 teams.
You think
you could convince me that the Packers are a wild card because all of the reports on Jordan Love are that he's spectacular.
I'm waiting to see it.
I'm waiting to see it in a regular game. I saw it in the preseason games. He did great in preseason.
Yeah, but
that's yeah. I mean, when he's still playing ones.
Yeah,
like
it's true. It's
ones,
true.
But it's short.
It's a limited. Yeah.
It's like a drive, 2 drives.
Right.
I need to see it for a full 4 quarters.
Bigger sample size.
I need to see you tired at the end of the game,
right?
Being efficient.
Yeah, correct.
So, but I've seen that from Jared Goff.
It's true.
I've seen it in Super Bowls or Super Bowl and AFC or NFC Championship games and things like that. And I've seen it from Kirk Cousins. So, but I just think the Lions are going to do exactly what you said and make that one little notch forward in defense, and it's gonna absolutely shift their entire season. I mean, they were so close to winning so many games last year, and their defense just didn't quite hold out. Yeah. I mean, they had a 31-27 loss to Miami. They had a 48-45 loss to Seattle, a 28-24 loss to Minnesota, a 38-35 loss to Philly. These are all field goal or 4-point games. Like, you're right there. Like, if all of those flip the other way and are wins, you're talking about a 12-win team.
Yeah, it was a Nebraska-ish effort. Just lose.
It was a Nebraska-ish effort. Although you didn't feel like they were giving it away at the end. You felt like the other teams were taking it away at the end.
Yeah, they were just missing something. And like I said, unless the Bears make a gigantic step forward and win like 6 or 7 games and steal some more games, the Lions will win 11. I figure like they're gonna. This is my pick. They'll be 11-6, and the Vikings will probably still be 13-4, somewhere in that ballpark. But they'll both make the playoffs because an 11-6 team is going to get in.
The only thing that stresses me out about them is that they lost Swift and Williams from their backfield.
Oh yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be good.
Jahmyr Gibbs seems like he's going to be good, but
He's a Swiss Army knife, kind of not. He's a poor man's Christian McCaffrey. Is what he is.
Oh, I mean that's probably pretty fair.
Yeah.
But he seems like he's going to be good. But
Yeah.
we don't know yet. I know that DeAndre Swift was pretty good, and
He
I
was
know that Williams is pretty good.
That's
So
true too. It'll be interesting to watch. So you're picking Minnesota or Detroit,
Detroit
with
to win.
Minnesota making the playoffs.
with
Yes or no?
I'm just going to give you my division winner right now because I need to get to this other this other one.
Okay. All
I need
right.
to get to this other one first.
We're moving to the South.
Yeah.
Okay. I know you're waiting for the West, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
What's new?
the NFC South has Baker Mayfield now, right? Come on, man. Here's the simple question: can Baker Mayfield be a serviceable enough quarterback with the Tampa Bay defense and wide receivers that they have to win them a division that they won last year at 8-9?
Yes.
Really? You think so?
Yeah. I don't see a reason why not.
Okay. Even with the addition of Derek Carr in New Orleans.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you're asking if it could. Yes, I think it could.
Oh, do you think they
But
will?
No.
Oh, okay. different question. All right.
Yeah,
I got
that's
a
a different
phrase.
question. I do not think they will.
right.
I have the Saints tabbed to easily take that division.
Okay. All right. So the Saints. Okay. So I'm gonna write that down, Saints. And then, do you have another team from that division making the playoffs? No. Right?
No.
Or yes? No. Really? So
No.
you're gonna have two wild card teams, maybe from the West. Or
Yeah, I'm assessing some stuff in my head right now.
Okay. All right. I'm just gonna say I think New Orleans also wins that division, and
Sure.
nobody else makes the playoffs.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay.
Like you could make an argument that Tampa makes it because they have a lot of good pieces outside of the quarterback.
They
that
do.
can make it work. Whereas I don't think the Panthers do. I don't think the Falcons do.
Right.
But yeah, I just realistically, you'd be kind of dreaming.
Yeah, I think you're right. Okay, so let's talk about the NFC West because you want to talk about that because it's a thing. So Brock Purdy's the quarterback in San Francisco. They got rid of Trey Lance, right? So Matthew Stafford, right? Hopefully is healthy in LA for the Rams, who went 5-12 last year. Kyler Murray is not healthy to start the season. We know that much from a 4-13 Cardinals team from last year, and and that means Joshua Dobbs is your starter.
Yeah.
In Arizona, which I find interesting. And then Geno Smith, who had a tremendous year last year for Geno Smith. But they were 9-8. They did make the playoffs.
Yeah.
But the question is, can the Seattle Seahawks get another year like that out of Geno Smith, take a step forward defensively? They gave up over 400 points last year.
Right.
Can they move forward defensively a little bit, or a little bit increased offensive output, which I'm not sure that that's capable. They got the same people coming back, but anyway, what's your take on the whole thing? And are the Rams as bad as 5-12? If everybody's healthy, are the Rams back to a 10-win type team? That's my question.
Okay. So obviously San Francisco is the odds-on favorite, right?
Yeah.
And they seem like it. They should be.
Sure.
Shouldn't have a problem. Then you get to the Seahawks. Like you said, can Geno Smith repeat last year? Because Geno Smith had one of the most efficient quarterback years in NFL history, and they still lost in the first round of the playoffs.
Right.
Like, he played at such a high level, and it still didn't matter. Now they've gone out and made a couple changes. I think Kenneth Walker being healthy is going to be big for the season. I think they went and drafted what's called a cornerback, who's going to be really important. Jamal Adams is also, well, he's now saying this season opener is in doubt, but he was healthy.
Right.
So he might be healthy. I think that they're going to make the playoffs as well. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. There's not a ton of barriers in their way, especially when you consider that, they should just get better. Just Smith and Jigba is supposed to play, so that's good. And their schedule is not terrible. I mean, yeah,
Right.
They're at Detroit. That's not great. They're at the Bengals. That's not great. They're at Baltimore. That's not great. They're at the Cowboys. None of these are good.
Right.
So there's chances that they can lose some of these road games, which sucks for them. But that could be, but that could kind of shift their thing a little bit. I think they're going to still be like an 8, 9, 10 win team, but I think they'll make the playoffs with that. However, I think what you said a few minutes ago is important. The Rams will be distinctly better.
Okay.
5-12 with a ton of injuries last year. It kind of was what it was. The only reason I could see the Rams being bad this year, and this is important because there's going to be a lot of teams doing this maybe, is to try and get Caleb Williams next year.
So, but I don't think they're going to do that from the start.
I don't think they'll do that from the start, but if it looks kind of 50-50, you have to make that decision by game 3.
But you also need to know if Cooper Kupp's going to be able to play because he is what drives everything, right? Yeah.
And I don't think the Cardinals, even with Dobbs, I actually think they're going to be better with Dobbs than they were with Kyler Murray.
Really?
But I just don't believe in Kyler Murray's skill set. I don't think he has it. But that being said, them being better and them winning 5 or 6 games, 7 games, and not making the playoffs, that's fair in my mind. So yeah, I've got 2 teams out of here, possibly 3.
Okay. Possibly 3. So no,
adding the Rams, and then flipping backwards is where you'll get the other team from the NFC North.
I'm gonna pin you down though because I need an answer.
Okay.
So
I'll say 2 teams out of here.
Okay. So
I'll say 2 teams out of the North.
You're picking San Francisco to win.
San Francisco to win.
And then who makes the playoffs other than San Francisco?
Seattle.
Just Seattle?
If I'm being pinned down to it, yes.
Okay.
I'm just gonna say the 2.
So you have New Orleans.
Yep.
You have Detroit, Minnesota, then in the playoffs.
Minnesota, yep.
Philadelphia, and one more.
Yep. Oh.
I need one more.
I don't like it.
I know. Well, you gotta pick one more.
Let's go with Green Bay.
Really?
Let's say Green Bay sneaks in. Let's say Jordan Love is all that he's cracked up to be.
Okay.
Let's say Green Bay gets in. I'm there with it.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that Dallas puts this all together and makes the playoffs.
Do they make a run in the playoffs?
No, they're just going to make playoffs. And they're going to do like they always do and screw it up.
Wait, are they going to beat Philly out for the one?
No. Philadelphia's going to win the conference. They're going to have the bye. They're going to be the one. Dallas.
When I hear the word "puts it together," I think that they're winning.
Well, Dallas won 12 games last
year, and only threw 15 interceptions in the process.
I mean, you got to do what you got to do.
He's trying to do his best Jameis Winston impression.
Had the 4th best record in the NFC. I mean, they were right there, and then just were awful. Yeah, but that's okay. You never know what you're going to get with Dak. It's true. I mean, it is what it is. So,
right.
But I think that they're better than that. I think Micah Parsons is just a beast on the Dallas Cowboys defense. Their defense is good. They had the lowest points against of any NFC team last year. So 342 points against. So that's pretty good. I mean, if you're the lowest one in the NFC, that's pretty good. There was only 4 or 5 defenses that were better.
I would tend to agree.
And 2 of those that were statistically better only played 16 games. So, yeah, there's that. Anyway, it'll be interesting, right? It's going to be an interesting season to watch. I want to see how it all unfolds. I want to see how the new contract for Nick Bosa makes him play better or worse, right?
Never know.
I mean, yeah.
I haven't seen as many contract year lulls in the last 4 or 5 years. I used to see him all the time, but I haven't seen that many lately.
And he's a beast. He is.
He's freaking good. If he plays to half his potential, he still is a top 15 rusher.
Sure. And I think if you don't underestimate Seattle's defense and how good it can be, you're talking about if they make the right steps forward. Bobby Wagner is a tackling machine. I mean,
tackling few.
Tackling few. He is a tackling machine. That's all he does. Jordan Brooks, there's 2 linebackers there together. They're going to get 100 tackles each, right? These guys are tackling machines. That's what they do. Jordan Brooks looked like Bobby Wagner last year. Uchenna Nwosu.
The problem I have with Jordan Brooks.
Go ahead.
Let me get into this one. Is Jordan Brooks caught a lot of Bobby Wagner can stuff a run.
Yeah.
I didn't see a lot of that from Jordan Brooks. I saw a lot of Jordan Brooks stopping the run after it came through.
Okay.
But I didn't see him filling holes like Bobby would.
Well,
so I think he's good, and that's where he has to take that one next step, right? You have to push your defense a little farther forward and into the gaps. But I also saw him Brooks as being more of a liability in pass coverage than Bobby Wagner is. Bobby Wagner isn't necessarily the most agile person in pass coverage, but he's more agile than Brooks.
Maybe. Okay.
It's the way I saw it.
I could go with that.
But I've got like 10 years of Bobby tape in my head.
Brooks
Right?
Brooks had 5 passes defended last year, no interceptions. He had 1 sack and 3 tackles for loss. 161 tackles though overall.
Tons of tackles,
Tons of tackles.
after it gets to the second level.
Well, yeah, I mean that's part of it.
It is part of it.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna, yeah. Bobby Wagner's been like the NFL's leading tackler for like ever, and so it's amazing what he does. But so last year with the Rams, 140 tackles total. He had 2 interceptions. He had six sacks.
Hey.
Yeah, so when you talk about that, he also had 5 passes defended, and 5 stuffs. Stuff is a weird.
Yeah.
Is a weird. No, he had 6. Sorry, he had more than. He had 16 and a half stuff.
16.5. Yeah, I see that.
For 5 yards. I don't know how you get 5 stuff yards on 16 and a half stuffs. I don't even know what a stuff is, by the way.
It's when it gets to the line. It's a no game play.
You just stuff them.
It's just jammed right at the line.
Then what are the stuff yards for? Anyway, I thought that was a tackle for loss.
The way of indicating. That's the way of indicating a stat that says like because a tackle that doesn't go for a loss.
Yeah.
It just counts in one. It just counts in one category, but it's still super impactful. That's just a way of kind of throwing another thing in there that kind of makes it work.
Yeah, Bobby Wagner, 3 different times is that over 150. His lowest tackle output in his career was 104 in 2014 with Seattle, and that was in 11 games.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, he is a tackling machine. He is. I mean, and I realize this is season 12 or whatever it is for him now, but he's a man among boys when it comes to linebackers. He knows how to linebacker. That's what he does.
He's good at it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's a run stop or if it's pass or whatever. He's just that good at it. So Seattle's defense could be really good. If their defensive backs play better, they will be very, very good with Wagner and Brooks at linebacker. And I think Brooks is going to learn a lot from Bobby Wagner. So there you go.
I would tend to agree. We'll see if they put it together again, and we'll see. And also, Gino has to keep the level.
Gino has to be
goes
good.
Back at all.
Right.
Oof.
Yeah, and then you're hoping for not like an injury. I mean, I think Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to be good, but
they said he's cleared to play.
Is he healthy? What happens if he's not 100% and you get an injury to Metcalf, or what's his name? Anyway, you're an injury away from being, receiver wise, maybe having an issue, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, already, if you look at their depth chart on ESPN, like Witherspoon is listed as questionable, Jamal Adams is listed as out.
Yep.
Their second string of players, there's 3 questionable at Derek Hall, Daryl Taylor, Mike Morris. They're all questionable, and then they don't have much of a third string.
No, all
these IR guys out there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they don't have a ton of depth.
Yeah,
to deal with injury.
They're going to need some time. They're going to need these starters to be good and healthy for a good 5 or 6 weeks before some other guys get healthy. You know what I mean? That's what's going to make it. If you get some injuries early, it could derail a season.
Be a problem,
it could be an issue.
Or if Gino just doesn't play up to his potential again.
Yeah, I don't know.
Which is always a possibility.
Drew Lock. Calling out Drew Lock. Come on, buddy.
I swear to Christ, if Drew Lock takes over at quarterback for Seattle and is like, we got this, I'm going to be so pissed.
He might, you never know, and just roll with it, right?
Well, I knew he was never the problem. Like, I don't think he's that great of a quarterback, but I knew that it was, what have I always called the old white guy offense?
Yeah.
Just run the ball, and then throw it when you have to.
3 yards in a cloud of dust.
Yeah. You drafted quarterbacks and then said, here, just hand this ball off 3 times, and then or hand the ball off twice, then deal with a 3rd and long. So,
all right, we got AFC to talk about.
AFC, let's go.
So here we go. Hold on, I gotta make some notes here because I got our playoff teams here, and I want to make sure that we. Who wins the NFC? Who's the number 1 seed in the NFC?
Ooh, I see no reason why it wouldn't be Philly.
Okay.
Nothing or. Yeah, I see no reason why it wouldn't be Philly. They have the better quarterback. It's between Philly and San Fran for me, but Philly's got the better quarterback.
Just for argument, I'm going to take San Francisco.
Okay.
Not that it'll matter. I think they'll both win about 12 games, 12 to 13. So, but anyway, there's that. All right, let's talk about the AFC East because that's going to be exciting. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of focus on the AFC East because the savior is here for the Jets, which is Aaron Rodgers. So the Jets, the Jets fans are telling me. Um, this is a division that's loaded with quarterback talent. Josh Allen, Tua, and the other Jones boy. Um, it really confused me when Daniel and Mac Jones were both. I was so confused. I was like, is that the same guy? Anyway, no. But anyway, this is a division that's loaded with talent. It has the Buffalo Bills have been that team, right? They are I don't know how many division titles in a row they've won, but they are the team to beat. And then the Jets went out and got Aaron Rodgers, supposedly solving their quarterback issues. They went and got Dalvin Cook to now, I don't know if he's going to start in place of Breece Hall, but Breece Hall's kind of questionable whether he's going to be healthy.
So that's such a weird situation. Talk
Right.
about the chaos that causes in a fantasy draft.
Yeah, right, because you don't know who the number one is. And you want to – Breece Hall had a pretty good year last year, right? Well, Dalvin Cook has a pretty good year. Dalvin, they're both good running backs, but they can't both get all those touches. So there's that. And then you've got Garrett Wilson, right? And
right.
who had a breakout year last year without Aaron Rodgers. And now you're going to add in Aaron Rodgers' old buddies. So Lazard is coming, right? And Randall Cobb is coming. And I don't know how good those guys are there. I mean, they're familiar. He's going to be familiar. It's going to give him some comfort. Aaron Rodgers got people to throw to that he knows. Are they helpful enough to make Garrett Wilson better, to take pressure off of Garrett Wilson? Because everybody's going to double team Garrett Wilson. He's the number one guy. I don't think Lazard and Cobb are those guys that could step up and be a number one if Garrett Wilson got hurt. I don't know what the Jets' situation is. Their defense is going to be good. There's a lot to consider. There's a lot going through my head in the NFC or in the AFC East. I don't know anything other than I'm going to make the bold prediction right now that the Patriots are going to finish last in the AFC East this year.
That's not that bold.
Isn't? You don't think it's bold?
I don't think it's that bold. Like they could do like the Commanders and finish last at 8-8.
At 8-8. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
It's entirely possible because this whole division's pretty deep. I think that Miami's the most overrated team in the AFC. I think they've got a ton of pieces, a liability at quarterback.
It is.
And a head coach who is almost getting in his own way with creativity. So I think that's kind of a problem. I think that they're kind of one of these things where they're so wealthy in terms of pieces that they can't figure out how to, like, all at once they're trying to do too much with it. And then the moment Tua goes out, your potential win percentage flies through the floor.
It does. You're not wrong.
And the likelihood of that happening is excruciatingly high. So it's uncomfortably high for a starting quarterback.
Okay.
So I think they're the most overrated. That being said, I think they're better than Miami top to bottom, and I think even with the backup, they're better than New England top to bottom. I think even with the backup, they'll beat New England just fine. It's those top two, in my opinion. It's Jets, Bills. I know the Bills are good. They pretty much got the same people for the most part. It's pretty much going to look the same. No one's been able to stop it yet, despite having years of game film. I don't expect that to change too much. But the Jets, man, have you been watching Hard Knocks?
Yeah.
It's super fun. I love Hard Knocks. I don't understand why people get upset with it. They also have Mecole Hardman, by the way.
Yeah, Mecole Hardman. It's true.
Another speedster. So they've got a lot of pieces. Oh, and Michael Carter is another receiver they have.
Yeah.
I remember from a couple years ago was all that in a bag of chips. So I feel like they could be really, 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 really good.
They can.
And I know Michael Carr plays running back, but he's converted on their depth chart to wide receiver, by the way.
Yeah. So as long as the line can protect Aaron Rodgers, if Aaron Rodgers goes down, not that they're going to suffer too much in the backup quarterback position, because Zach Wilson, I think, is capable of being the guy. I mean,
sure,
he's pretty good. He's not great. Right. But if he goes down, the morale drop is going to be whoa.
It will be substantial.
Yeah, it'll be substantial. And you'll see that happen.
Looking at their line, they've got names. They've got Green Brown, Laken Tomlinson, Connor McGovern, who was a former Bronco, and I know that guy's good, and Mekhi Becton. I don't know as much about Vera Tucker. I hear he's good, but I don't know as much about him as I know the other guys. So they've got names on their line. I think he's going to be fine. Aaron Rodgers played all last year without any injury issues.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
and that
But
line
that
was
was
worse than this line.
and maybe he's really good at getting rid of the football and scrambling enough to do what he needs to
I
do.
see
And
no reason that will change this year. Yeah.
yeah, you could be right. I don't know. I feel
It's
like
just whether or not it comes all together.
yeah, there's a lot of pieces that are new, and when you have a lot of new pieces trying to blend in with the old pieces, sometimes things just don't go quite right.
Right.
Sauce Gardner also on the defense. This is a good team. I don't see any reason
There's
why.
a lot to like.
Yeah, there's a lot to like on the Jets. Now that being said, they still have to play the Buffalo Bills twice, right? And the Buffalo Bills are good. We know that they're good. They're
really
a proven commodity. They have talent at almost every position. They are good.
Well, that's
And-
why I said they haven't really changed in 3 years. So you've got all this game film to look back on over the past 3 years, and yet they've still managed to stay on top each year. I mean, part of that's because the division's been down a little bit, but
Yeah.
it hasn't hurt them, right? Like they're neck and neck in terms of playability with the Bengals and the Chiefs.
Okay.
So that's tough.
Who you got for this division?
Bills.
Okay, Bills are winning. Does anybody else make the playoffs?
The Jets are gonna make the playoffs.
Ooh, okay.
I got them pegged as a wild card.
I have the Bills winning the division. Miami makes the playoffs.
Right on.
Still, that's if Tua stays healthy. But I'm just banking on them protecting him a little better than they did before, because they can't afford to get him hit too much. He seems, I don't know. Anyway, we'll see what happens. But I think the Jets are an injury or two away from having chaos too.
It's fair. Yep.
Yeah. So I think it's a fragile couple of teams, and if everybody stays healthy and all their starters are there, that the Jets and the Dolphins are both probably capable of winning 10 football games.
But I feel like when we say that sometimes it's too obvious, because if what's his name goes down for the Bills,
Josh
Allen
Allen
goes down for the Bills, how do you feel about that team? Because I mean, there's
Kyle
Diggs, but are we feeling great about Gabe and those guys like carrying the load?
the backup Allen doing what he needs to do.
Are we feeling great about their scenario? Like,
Well,
if Patrick Mahomes goes out for the Chiefs, I feel pretty good because I've seen their backup. I know what he's capable of. But if Trevor Lawrence goes out for the Jaguars, I have no confidence in that team.
it's not just the offense though.
There's a component of defense, but then you just become the Patriots, a good defense with an
I get
offensive
it.
struggle.
But what I'm saying is you've got a proven defense that is going to make turnovers. They're going to get you the ball back. Stephon Diggs is good enough to be a number one wide receiver no matter who's
He
throwing
can make
him
a
the football.
mediocre quarterback better. Yeah.
Right. So and James Cook has not been bad at running back. I mean,
No.
so he hasn't been that guy that he's not a big name.
I
like
forgot
you
they
hear.
bounced Singletary.
Yeah.
I just whenever I hear like one injury away, I think like, yeah, that's like 90%.
It is, and you're right. You're right. Most of
There
the
are a
teams are that
couple
way.
teams that I think will survive an injury
Right.
and maintain their status, but
Right.
it's very few.
It'll be interesting.
The Bengals without Joe Burrow
right
are not that great.
are not that great. You're right. That is exactly right. Let's talk about the AFC North since we're talking about Joe Burrow.
Okay.
Obviously, we have Joe Burrow, who may or may not be ready to play football. I don't. Again, we don't know how good Lamar Jackson, who is ready to play football. I like Lamar Jackson. I like the way he plays. You have Deshaun Watson, the poor man's Lamar Jackson. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I just say that. So, and we have Kenny Pickett.
We have Kenny mother flipping Pickett.
I don't know about Kenny Pickett and the Steelers. They do have Najee Harris, and I mean you can't discount that. But I feel like the Cleveland Browns, if they get mediocre to good play out of Deshaun Watson, are better than the Steelers. Right. I feel like the Ravens are already better than the Steelers, and I feel like the Bengals are better than the Steelers with Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
So I feel like the Steelers are already last in my book, right?
Yes.
Last place. Okay. That leads us to what happens with the rest of these players. Who is going to be impactful and helpful moving forward? And I haven't decided on a champion yet. I want to say it's Baltimore. I want to say it's Baltimore over Cincinnati in the worst way. Cincinnati had the Super Bowl appearance last year. They had the AFC Championship appearance. They're going backward step by step, maybe.
Okay, I had an absolute argument with one of the friends of the show, Austin.
Yeah.
Yesterday about that statement. I said that the Bengals had regressed.
Yes.
And he got all incredulous and was like, they just made the AFC Championship.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I understand, but they made the Super Bowl the year before.
Right.
I was like, but it's not just those things. Burrow had a worse year last year
He did.
than the year before.
Right.
Like, if that progression continues, you can expect even more to go downhill. There's not saying it will, but to call it regression isn't inaccurate. They did.
No.
They regress season over season, and that's fine. They can go back up, but that's not an incorrect statement. So
No.
I see what you're saying. I don't think they will, though. I don't think they'll keep going backwards.
You don't. Well, but it's not okay. So there's two kinds of teams. There's two kinds of teams that have, when you have a worse season than you did the year before, there's two reasons for that. One is you're just not as talented. You lost players, whatever, free agency, whatever. Somebody's injured for the season. Something happens, but you're just not talented enough to win the games you won last year.
I think within that counts for you played worse. That counts in you're not talented enough.
Maybe, but there's also, hey, everyone else in our division got better.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily, nobody looks at that and goes, oh, well, last year you beat this team by 3 points twice. And this year you lost to them by 3 points twice. They got better than you. They somehow found a way to beat you. You know what I mean? If they're getting better as teams, and I think Cleveland, now that we've settled the Baker Mayfield thing and we've got a quarterback there in Cleveland that I don't particularly agree with, Deshaun Watson hasn't been suspended for anything ever. But hey, whatever. I feel like he's the guy. Okay, if he's comes out and plays well, like he can play, like we know he's capable of playing. Cleveland is much better off offensively, right? And they're going to challenge Cincinnati more than they did last year. Lamar Jackson, contract dispute is settled, right? He comes out and he plays and he has a fantastic year, right? Lamar Jackson is a dynamic player. We've already seen it.
But I mean, with him, the one thing we know about him is that he'll probably get injured at some point.
Well, that's true.
It's happened
but not for a whole
single
season,
year.
just a couple of games. Yeah, 3 or 4 games. Yeah. But I feel like those three teams might share all of the wins. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And beat the tar out of Pittsburgh, but that's, and so they're not going. None of them are going to be this. Hey, we're all outstanding. All of a sudden, you've got 3 10-7 teams. Right, that are sharing, and you look at it and you go, oh, well, Cincinnati's not as good as they were. Yeah, they might be as good as they were last year. They're just playing in a tougher division this year.
Everything else changed.
Right, so I don't know how that's going to play out. I'm picking Baltimore to win the division.
I'm picking Cincinnati to win it.
And I already got you down. And I'm picking Cincinnati to make the playoffs.
And I'm picking Baltimore to make the playoffs.
Well, there we go. So we're within a game or two of each other, probably, right? So
I think that the Deshaun Watson led Browns are. I have a list here of what I call true unknowns.
Yes.
Like teams that you're just not sure what the hell you're really going to get this year.
Right.
They're one of them.
Sure.
They have enough talent to be great on both sides of the ball.
Right.
They have enough talent to win this division.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the hell is going to happen.
That's true. And you're right. They're Watson, Nick Chubb, Amari Cooper, Joku at tight end.
Okay,
yeah, these are some good players. Elijah Moore's even good. These are good players.
They've got dudes.
They've got playmakers. You still have Myles Garrett. You still have Owusu Koromoa. You've got that's a good defense, dude. Denzel Ward's questionable start season. We'll see. They've got some great defensive players too. But they're playing in a tough division where the defense is prominent. Baltimore is defensive oriented. Cincinnati is defensive oriented. These teams want to play defense. Makes it really hard for offenses. But if you can run the football in this division and run it effectively, and that's Nick Chubb to a T. I love Nick Chubb as a running back. I think they have a chance. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if I picked Cincinnati to finish second, if Cincinnati finished third or tied for second with Cleveland.
Right.
That would not surprise me.
Just on talent alone, you'd be like, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we'll see. But 2 more divisions. You ready?
Yep.
Here we go. AFC South. Right? Because everybody loves the AFC South. So last year, we don't really care about the AFC South, I'm going to be honest with you. AFC South, gosh, I can't get the right thing to come up. Just everything I had that was up here is just all out of whack, and my computer said,
what are you talking about? Showing, I'm looking at AFC South.
Yeah,
players.
no, that's right, but I've got stats up over here, and they're all freaking out on me.
Okay.
They're the things that I want to tell you. So last year, the Jacksonville Jaguars made the playoffs from this division at 9-8. Okay,
Yeah.
They were mediocre. They won 5 straight to end the season to get to 9-8. So they were the hot team. And yeah, they beat the Chargers in the playoffs. Probably shouldn't have. The Chargers were up in that game pretty big and just laid an egg in the second. The defense just decided to shut down. It's going to be interesting again. I don't think Jacksonville is any better than 9-8. I don't. I think that's as good as they can get. I maybe 10. Okay, I'll 10-7. Okay, that's not significantly better, but we can give them 10 wins. But they had to win 5 straight games at the end of last year, and everybody said, "Oh, well, they're putting it all together." That was great. That was last year. Can they do it again this year? And why did they do that at the end of last year? Why did they all of a sudden decide they were good? Were they putting it all together? Was the schedule favorable? Was it, what's the deal here? Because the rest of the division, the Titans were 7-10, and quite honestly, terrible at times.
Right.
The Colts were 4-12, and the Texans were 3-13. This is a division where the Colts and the Texans should be 4 wins. You should automatically have 4 wins, and you only had 9 all year. That to me suggests that the rest of the season, there's 4 games against those teams. There's 13 more left. You were 5-8 against the rest of the teams. That's not okay.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't think that Jacksonville is great. I think they're an okay football team that will probably win this division again because, quite honestly, it's terrible.
Right.
Anyway, so if I had to pick a team, I'm going to pick Jacksonville. I don't want to, but I got to pick Jacksonville to win the division again, just on talent alone, unless something crazy happens in Houston or Indianapolis with a brand new rookie quarterback. And I don't think that's going to happen. But you still have Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill in Tennessee that you got to contend with. But their offensive outputs. So the other 3 teams, the Tennessee, Indianapolis, and Houston, all had offensive outputs below 300 points last year. Tennessee just happened to win more games because of their defense was better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So none of them were great offensively. So I don't know. I don't even know what to make of this division because I don't think Tennessee's going to get a ton better. Derrick Henry's getting older. Ryan Tannehill's getting older. Indianapolis has got Anthony Richardson, okay, at starting quarterback. Is that going to be a thing? This is their how many starting quarterback in the last 6 years? Like 6? I don't know. And then Houston starting a rookie. I don't know. I don't think any of the rest of these teams are playoff bound or even really worth talking about unless Tennessee finds a way to put this all together and score some points. But their offense is becoming very predictable. So what do you got?
Okay, so the Jacksonville Jaguars are much better than you're giving them credit for.
You think so?
I absolutely.
Okay.
The stretch that they went on the back half of the season, leading into the playoffs,
Mhm.
the continued excellence in the playoffs. They only lost Kansas City by 7 points by a touchdown. All right, they being fair, they only beat the Chargers by 1 point.
Mhm.
But even looking at their losses earlier in the season, there were some strange kind of ones in there. There were some funky things: 8 points to Philadelphia, a 7-point game to Houston, a 6-point game to New York, a 4-point game to Denver. There's some strange things in there. But once they figured it out, it kind of got tough. Like they got really good really fast. And now they pick up Calvin Ridley. Now they have, Kirk was kind of leading them. Kirk and Ingram were kind of leading them in receiving.
Yeah.
In receiving
Christian Kirk, yeah.
touches. But now they have Calvin Ridley, who I have no reason to believe has lost the step.
He sat out a whole year.
He's out a whole year. That's a lot of time to work out.
It is. Yes, it is a lot of time
to work
One
out.
of two things
So,
happen: either you watch a lot of TV or you worked out.
especially if you tamper a lot, when you say
I
hey,
mean-
as soon as I can, I'm going to sign with Jacksonville. So you've moved down
I
to
mean,
Jacksonville ahead of time and
right.
start training.
It's true.
But he's good. Even if he's at 80% while
Yeah.
he's warming back up, he's still awfully good.
Yeah. Okay.
So I see them, they were 9-8 last year at the end of the regular season. I see them having 10-11 wins this year. And that's mostly because I don't think Houston is going to be worth a damn. I actually think that the Titans are going to take a huge step back. Everyone's penciling them in at 500. I don't think that's a good call.
Yeah.
I'd actually be surprised if they win 6 games this year. And I think that Indianapolis is going to be a bit of a surprise. The
Think so?
Jonathan Taylor thing is holding me up a little bit.
Yeah.
Just because, okay, is it Naheem Hines then? Is he the
Right.
guy that
Yeah.
I'm expected to put? And so I'm just not 100% sure about them. So ultimately, I just say that Jacksonville's really good. They get into the playoffs easily, and no one else from the division does.
Okay. Yeah, and I can get behind that. I don't know that C.J. Stroud is the answer in Houston. They need a lot more help than just C.J. Stroud, but
Absolutely. Well, you tank for another year, you get another good piece.
yeah, it's what you're going to have to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. yeah, I don't know. Okay, you can say that about Jacksonville. That's fine with me. I do think Tennessee is not. I mean, they're not getting any younger, and they're not
They're
changing the way
not getting.
they're not changing the way they do anything.
Derrick Henry isn't getting more durable. He's getting
No,
less durable. Ryan
correct.
Tannehill isn't getting more accurate. He's getting less accurate.
Yeah. So I don't think that's a thing, but I don't think either of the other teams, Indianapolis or Houston, is capable of competing with Tennessee even.
Correct.
So yeah, I feel like the same order of finish, you can pick Houston and Indianapolis in any order you want at the bottom.
Indianapolis is a big wild card for me. If you told me they were going to win, 8 games, 9 games this year, I'd be like, okay. If you told me they were going to win 2, I'd be like, okay. Like, just they kind of fall all over the place. Rookie quarterbacks, hard to predict, but the Colts at least have some talent outside of the quarterback. The Texans don't really have any. Well, so that's why that's why the Texans are written off so fast.
Well, that's true. Defensively, Indianapolis has some players.
Absolutely.
Michael Pittman Jr. is a great receiver. He's serviceable number one.
Do they still have T.Y. Hilton?
No. No.
I don't even know who's on this roster.
And then their projected number one on their depth chart is Zach Moss at running back, and he's questionable. So I feel like if they go in there with of course they already have Gardner Minshew at backup too, so there's that. In case that Anthony Richardson goes down, they got the stash. So I don't know.
They have Isaiah McKenzie on this team. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's an interesting roster.
But their defense with Shaq Leonard, DeForest Buckner, Ebukam, like these are great players.
Yeah,
so
they really are.
Defensively, I'm not worried about them, and that's what makes me say, okay, could they get 8 wins? Sure, because the defense is going to keep them in. Offense got to do just enough.
Yeah, and I think Indianapolis last year lost. Well, they had a couple of games that kind of skewed their season stats in terms of for and against. They lost 26-3 to New England. They lost 54-19 to Dallas.
Right.
And that automatically skews your points against thing. They lost by 1 to Philadelphia, right? I mean, they lost by 1 to the Commanders. There were some close games. There were a couple of blowouts too. But
by the way, that's a trend I'm seeing looking around. There are a lot of teams that Philly beat by like 3 points or less.
Barely, yeah.
Like a way more than I thought. Like I remember Philly as being just dominant last year, but when I look back over the stats, I go, oh man, they kind of snuck out quite a bit.
Well, they started the season looking dominant. They had a 3-point win over Detroit, but then they beat Minnesota 24-7. They beat Washington 24-8, right? And they looked like that team that just kind of throttled teams. But the rest of the games, 8-point win, 3-point win, 9-point win. Okay, they lost to Washington, which somebody explain that to me.
Somebody help me with this.
They beat Indianapolis by 1, Green Bay by 7, the Bears by 5, the Giants by 6, and lost 2 out of 3 heading down the stretch to Dallas and New Orleans, which is kind of, that was Jalen Hurts getting hurt, right? So Gardner Minshew was the guy. So there was that, but and then of course they go into the playoffs. They crush the Giants 38-7, and the Niners 31-7. They looked like the complete football team at that point. So yeah, I think it's going to come down to how well they can run the football. They had 4 different guys last year who led the team in rushing at any point during the season. Led the team in, were the high rusher in the game. In the playoffs, it was Gainwell, but all season long it was Sanders. It was Hurts like 4 or 5 different games. When Jalen Hurts is leading your team in rushing, it's probably not the best thing.
It's more alarming than people are willing to give it credit for.
Except they won all those games
right.
during the regular season last year. They won 4. He led the team in rushing 4 times in the regular season. They won all 4 of those games. So it's interesting, and his Jalen Hurts numbers are also interesting. The passing numbers range from 153 yards to 355. Well, it was Minshew, 380 yards. You know what I mean? It's all over the place, and I think they were a little hit and miss. But their defense was good enough to not give up more than 18 or 19 points a game. Sure. That's pretty good. You're going to win a lot of football games. So I still think Philadelphia is probably the best team in the NFC. But anyway, well, we're not talking about the NFC.
Yeah,
we got one more division.
We got one more.
Here it is. Ready? Wait, did we get this one? It's just Jacksonville, right? Is that what we decided?
Just Jacksonville, yes.
Okay. So let's go to the AFC West. The AFC West, again, loaded. It's got Justin Herbert. It's got Pat Mahomes. It's Patrick. Sorry, I don't want to offend his mom. Patrick Mahomes. It's got Jimmy Garoppolo now, right? Jimmy G, the best looking quarterback in football. It's got it's got Russell Wilson, who we're hoping has a better season than he did last year. Right? Are we not?
Some of us more than others.
Some of us more than others, but I would just it would be nice to see him have a little bit better. You've got Josh Jacobs back for the Raiders, right? That's a big deal. That contract thing is signed. Chris Jones, on the other hand, for the Chiefs, not signed, right? Probably thinking he's leaning towards playing on Thursday tomorrow night, but he's just I just want a new contract. I get it, but the best way to do that is to go out and get 6 sacks tomorrow night, and then you're good, right?
I love when I go to my boss and say, "Listen, I want a new raise. I'm not coming back into work until I get it." I usually don't get to come back to work at all.
The problem is, your contract's not guaranteed.
My contract's not guaranteed. Well, neither is his. That's what he's arguing for.
That's true. And I think it's appropriate that the only fuzzy picture that I managed to pull out of all this was Travis Kelce, who is probably not playing tomorrow night, right? And the betting.
Well, hold on now. They said that he's probable.
They upgrade him to probable. He was questionable earlier.
They've adjusted him a little bit because the news came out that it's just a bone bruise.
The betting line, they dropped 2 points when the injury news to Kelce came out. They were a 6.5 point favorite, I think, when the betting line came out, and then when that news hit, all of a sudden they were a 4.5 point favorite against the Lions tomorrow night. So Travis Kelce is a big deal. I mean, he's a huge part of that offense. If you don't have to worry about Travis Kelce, it takes a big load off of everything. I mean,
it really does.
Because he does everything a wide receiver does, and you can't tackle him.
And being fair, Pat Mahomes has missed a game or two. Yeah. But Travis Kelce hasn't.
No, he hasn't. So that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, this division is interesting. It's full of interesting. The Chargers need to take a step forward. They made the playoffs last year. I mean, that was the first step, right? They need to win a playoff game now, right? Otherwise it's just going to be people are going to start wondering, right? So I wouldn't even somebody even on ESPN had the coach on the hot seat already, and I'm like, maybe not the hot seat, but I could see it getting warm.
Well, what's happened with them is you've had a couple seasons where it's hinged on something so small.
Yep.
A field goal, a fourth down, a timeout, blah, 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 blah. And at some point, when games are that close that often, i.e. Nebraska, you start going,
right.
What's wrong with the coach? Why is the coach not calling the timeout at the right times? Why is he not doing this? Why is he not doing that? Because it's so close that it really can't be a player issue.
Right.
It's interesting.
And at some point in time, the Charger defense has got to come up and play.
They got to show up.
They got to play the way the offense is capable of playing. For some reason, I mean, I don't even know what it is, but last year the Chargers gave up. It went back to 23. I hate it when it does this crap. I'm telling you, my stats thing just does what it wants. It goes wherever it wants to. Last year they gave up 384 points last year, which was pretty high. It's not the highest in the AFC. There were 3 or 4 teams that gave up 400 points, but they were up there in terms of points given up. They only scored 391, so their point differential is 7, plus 7. The 391 is a good amount of points.
That's a lot, yeah.
So your offense can't do a crap ton better. The highest team in the AFC is the Buffalo Bills at 455, or I'm sorry, the Chiefs at 496. But the average of the really good teams is about 420. So you're only like 20 points away from being right there with the top 3 or 4 teams in the league offensively. It's your defense. They're gonna have to step up and do something. They have players. They have individual players. Joey Bosa, can he stay healthy? Right? Khalil Mack, Eric Kendricks, they got from Minnesota, I think is a big pickup. Derwin James, Asante Samuel Jr. This is a team that has talent. Can they put it all together and be the defense that they need to be to propel the offense forward? But that's the Charger thing. Denver, on the other hand, right, needs an offense to start performing, right? They need plays in on time. They need there's a lot of things they need. It wasn't that they weren't talented. It just looked like a dysfunctional team at times last year.
It did. Yeah.
So I don't know.
My takeaway from it game after game was like, you're saying, what are we doing? Like when you say, what are we doing? it means that there's some disconnect somewhere versus what are you doing? Why are you throwing that? What are you doing? Like
Right.
that means you're angry at someone. When you say what are we doing, it means that there's something not working. Like there's something bigger not working. Why are we lining up this way? Why are you over there? Why is this play not in?
Right. And there were a couple of times where you said that about Russell Wilson, but it wasn't necessarily his fault.
It did happen. I mean, don't get me wrong. He had his worst year as a quarterback. Like without doubt, he still finished top 10 in passing yards.
Right.
In the league. He didn't have he wasn't leading the league in interceptions or anything like that. He definitely wasn't leading the league in touchdowns either. So he had ultimately what turned out to be an okay year quarterback wise.
Right.
Bad year for what you expect from Russell Wilson.
Right.
And that's especially disappointing. But so many times a play would come in and we've got an eye for him set in 3rd and 20.
Yeah. I mean,
and I'm like, what do we think is going to happen here?
It is weird. It was a weird year.
So remember earlier I said that I don't think the coach for Miami could get out of the way of his own creativity.
Yeah.
Like it was clouding him up. I think the same thing happened with Nathaniel Hackett. Nathaniel Hackett, without a doubt, I believe is a great offensive coordinator. He proved that year over year in Green Bay. So we know he can put together an offense.
Right.
But it just, as the head coach, as the guy making the decisions, the guy making the final say on everything, he just didn't quite have it.
Yeah. And to be fair to the Denver Broncos, the Denver Broncos lost 3 games in overtime last year. They lost to the Seahawks by 1 point, the Ravens by 1 point, the Chargers by 3. They were, I mean, those 3 overtime games, let's just say, go their way. Right?
Yeah.
And now you're looking at a 8-9 team that if they win one of those other games and finish 9-8, they're in the conversation for a playoff spot. It
was much closer than it seemed.
Yes. Now, to be fair, they also won a couple of close games.
It was so far below expectations.
The games were
is what happened.
And the games were so boring. The games were so badly played.
Big defensive games.
That Baltimore 10-9 loss. They lost the Jets 16-9. They beat Indianapolis in overtime 12-9. That was the worst game, right? 12-9 in overtime.
That was the one when people started throwing their hands up, going, "Why is this on?"
Right. They lost to San Francisco 11-10. This was happening all year.
They beat San Francisco.
They beat San Francisco. Yeah, 11-10. These games were all so as I love offense. That's why I watch football. You want to watch people score touchdowns. You want big plays. You want exciting. Yeah, I want interceptions and sacks and those things, but I also want teams to score. If they're not scoring, I can go watch the SEC play football. That's fine.
And what's crazy is you look over all of their stats game by game by game, and you think, 16 points, 11 points. There's the big game with the Raiders where they had 23. 9 points, 16 points, 9 points, 21 points. And then you get down to Kansas City, Sunday, December 11th.
Yep.
That was the first game where Nathaniel Hackett wasn't calling plays.
Right. Yeah.
And boom, 28 points. And then it went down for 15, for 24 and a win.
24 and a win.
And then we got smoked by Los Angeles.
Yeah. But then
they fired him.
24 and then 31. Yeah.
But over the final, 5 weeks of the season,
and
we went from like 15 points a game to 25 points a game.
And that loss to Denver, the win over Denver, if you want to, or win over the Chargers, that last game of the season, hurt the Chargers so badly in terms of playoff position. It was one of those. Killer. It was one of those games where, just like last year, they missed the playoffs because they couldn't beat the Raiders on the last game of the season.
It hurt my heart because I root for Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
Even though it's an in-division rival, I root for the success of Justin Herbert. And at that point, the Broncos were out of it. They were eliminated.
Yeah.
So beating the Chargers just hurt the team that I was going to continue to root for. In the playoffs.
Yeah, that was not good. But anyway.
The Broncos disappointed me a couple times last year.
I mean, it happens. So
yeah.
I mean, anyway.
Anyways.
Yeah. All right. So you're picking this division.
Yeah.
What do you got?
I think the Chargers are going to win it.
You think the Chargers are going to win the division? No, you don't.
Yes.
You don't.
Yep. I think the Chargers are going to win the division, but I think it's going to be narrow. Like, it's going to come down to, late season they beat the Chiefs on something or another. Like
Okay.
it's going to be
And
tight because they play the Chiefs the last week of the season.
the Chiefs are in the playoffs as well.
The Chiefs are, of course, yes.
Okay.
Chiefs are definitely in the playoffs.
Okay. I have it the other way. I have Kansas City and then the Chargers.
Yeah, I just think they're just barely gonna sneak it out. But hey, a division wins fun.
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Okay. So now who's number one? Who's the number one overall in the AFC? Is it still the Chiefs?
Well, it can't be if the Chargers are winning the division.
Well, that's true. You got the Chargers. That's right. So you got Buffalo, Cincinnati, Jacksonville.
It's going to be Buffalo.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go with Kansas City still as the number one.
That's fair.
Just FYI. But because I can't until someone beats them, knocks them off.
It's not a bad bet. Like I'm over here taking a risk, and I know
yeah.
it.
It's
like picking against the Warriors. Like, why would you?
Right. Yeah. All right. I like it all though. Okay. So just to throw it out there, then, if you had to pick this, you picked Philadelphia to be the number one in the NFC. Who actually wins the NFC and goes to the Super Bowl?
Damn, that's tough.
Yep.
San Fran.
Okay. I like it. I'm picking San Fran too.
Hey, there we go. San Fran makes the title game.
Okay. And then in the AFC, who wins the AFC?
I'm going to say the Chiefs.
Just from the wild card
having
spot.
the number one spot.
Okay.
They're from that, because I'm telling you, I think the Chargers are going to sneak into it, but the Chiefs can't count them out, right? What did I say? What did you say earlier?
And I'm going to go with Buffalo.
Hey, fair enough.
So there you go.
So you have Buffalo, San Francisco,
Buffalo,
and I have
San Francisco.
Chiefs, San Francisco.
Chiefs, San Francisco. Right. And we'll see how that goes. We're not gonna pick a champion yet, a Super Bowl champion yet. We'll just kind of see how this goes. Unless you want to.
Mid-season, week 9.
Week 8 or 9, yeah, we can pick
Yeah.
pick a Super Bowl champion. Yeah. Let me see if this plays.
I've heard this.
There you go.
All right. Why
That was free.
are like so like in college they have songs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That you sing. You know, the Ducks do shout, and they do it at Sandman at Virginia Tech. But they have songs. Obviously, those are like external songs, but they have like fight songs. How come pro football teams don't have fight songs?
There you go. How come?
Pro football teams don't have fight songs.
Well, that's what
Like, how
these.
come more
That's
people
what
haven't
these
adopted
are.
that? But they don't. They haven't stuck.
But there's no band to play them all the time when you score. Every time you score, you hear Rocky Top, right? Every time you score, you hear
$60,000 speaker
they
system
don't
in here could
have
probably
a
handle that.
band. They are getting paid to play that tape of.
Do the
whatever.
Denver Broncos need a band?
I mean,
Should
everybody
I
needs a
contact?
band.
Should I contact some local Broncos fans about creating a Broncos band?
I think
and
you
we'll
should
play every year.
Yeah, I think you should. And
Here come the mighty Broncos.
if you can play that and play it, if you play it, you go to what you do is you form the
They
band
have cheerleaders still.
and you go to the stadium and you play in the parking lot every game for a year, right? Play before the game, and then you're gonna get invited by somebody. Hey, you guys should come play that in the side of the stadium, right? And
sometimes I got to work though. I can't.
or maybe you play at halftime of a game. You know what I mean? You get invited in to go do a halftime show, and you guys
I'm just saying,
have to learn more than one song.
You give me and my bandmates, about 15 of us, like 10 seats, and you mic up our things, and bada bing, bada boom, we got the crowd rocking.
I believe it. I think I think it's a
Next
great
thing you know,
idea.
Next thing you know, I'll end up on some documentary on Netflix about the only non-college football.
Right.
It's the only non-college football band.
Yeah, that would be exciting. I think you should do it. I think it'd be great. I'm on board. I am supporting you in every way. And if you get in, I want tickets.
Yep, I'll try to do that.
All right. So that's all we have for today. Again, we're on YouTube every week. We're on Facebook under the Best Slam Sports Show. You can email us slamsports@gmail.com, and always check out the webpage. We want to thank ESPN, Fox Sports, NBC Sports. I usually start the music by this point in time, and I haven't because I hadn't.
Yep.
NBC Sports, ABC Sports, CBS Sports, the NBA, which we didn't talk about today. The NFL. It's just in my list of things, right? Also on here is the PGA Tour and all. The NCAA, Formula One. Of course, we want to thank our sponsors, The Range in Yakima, Boss Kitty Yarn, Stavenstone Wine Estates, and Hood River. Next week, college football, NFL football. It's going to be exciting. This has been a Brain Rock production, a Division